Okay, now that everything is thread traced, we can see everything nicely from the right side. We are ready to move on to our next step. So I've got one pattern piece here. I'm gonna flip this to the right side. This section right here, this is the inseam. This is what is the inside leg of your shorts. I'm gonna have the right side up, and I'm gonna fold the opposite side over to it. I need a pin tray. So I'm gonna match up the short sides here, and I want to pin along this line, matching our notches and our corners. So the first thing that I do whenever I am sewing and I'm matching up sides is I match the ends of my stitch lines. So there's one there and one there. So I'm gonna stab through on one side, check the back. I am not right on that corner there. So there's one corner lined up. Let's do the other corner. I always do the beginning and end of each stitch line first, and then I match up the notches. Ooh, that pin has something sticky on it. So right on that notch, make sure it's coming out right next to the notch on the other side. And I put my pins perpendicular to the stitch line when I'm matching notches. These you can sew over. And now we're going to pin the stitch line, just like you did on your sampler projects. Okay, so that's not lining up just right on this side, so I'm gonna lift one layer, line it up, make sure your pins are going in and out exactly on the line. After about a pin or two, it should mostly line up for you. Straight lines tend to line up pretty quick. I'm doing about 3 pins here. Now when we go to sew, we're gonna start here, stitch in the seam allowance, stitch on our stitch line, and then through the seam allowance. To make this a little easier, I'm gonna grab a ruler and I'm going to extend this line just to make it visually easier for you to see and for me to see where we're stitching. Typically, I can just follow this visually all the way through, but this is quite a lot of seam allowance. It's 2 inches. So let's go ahead and extend this line down through the end. So I have a ruler here. Again, I am using an ultra washable marker. You should be using a pencil. I'm just using the marker to make it easier to see on screen. So I'm gonna line up my ruler with the edge of this stitch line. I would actually recommend you guys do this before you pin, because that'll make it a little easier. And I'm just gonna extend that line all the way out. I only need to do that on one side because my cut edges are pretty lined up here. And I'm gonna put a perpendicular pin here at the end. Okay, let's take this to the sewing machine. Now for the purposes of this video, I'm using yellow thread on everything so you can really see my stitches well. But typically when we're making a garment, we do want our threads to match what we're doing. Okay, so I'm visually lining up with my stitch line at the edge of my fabric so that I can sew through the seam allowance with my back stitch. Turn the speed down just a tiny bit for you guys. Remove your pins as you go. Be sure to stay right on top of your stitch line. Okay, clip my threads, remove all of my pins. And then we're gonna repeat the process with the other pattern piece. So when your inseam is done, your piece should look like this. You've got one piece that's been stitched to itself to create this inseam. So now we're gonna take the other pattern piece and pin it together, just like the other one. Match up our inseams and pin it together just like we did the other one. I'm gonna extend the stitch line here, on this one through the seam allowance on the bottom. Just like before, I'm going to start by pinning on my corners, matching those up. The top and bottom of my stitch line. Then I will do my notch, and then I will do the stitch line. Ooh, that notch is way off. There it goes. Now I want the bulk of my fabric going off to the left of my machine, so I want my pins going this direction. Again, I'm going to do about 3 pins, just like before. Checking that my pins are going in and out on the lines on both sides. Come on, line up. There it goes. One more right here. Well, most of the time it lines up pretty nice. This side does not want to cooperate. There we go. All right. Put another perpendicular pin right there. And we're ready to sew. I'm going to sew this just like before. Cut my threads. And pull my pins out. Now we're ready to take these pieces to the iron. Before we do that though, let's take a look at this seam. Because when you pin this on each other, your stitch line should mostly line up on the same line as before. This fabric, I did feel it shifting when I pulled that pin out. It shifted out of place, but that is within a reasonable margin of error for this project. That's fine. If this was a corset, I'd redo that line because that's off enough that that would make me anxious. Okay, let's take this to the iron and press these seams open. So now we need to press these seams open. And so all I'm gonna do is kind of rotate from where it was folded slightly so I can press this open without causing any weird extra creases. I'm gonna open this up, give it a good press from the wrong side, and flip this around to the right side because I always like to press every seam, from the right side and from the wrong side. It just, ooh, everything just comes out crisper and cleaner when you do that. So make sure this is nice and flat. I'm gonna give it another press. And you can see now when we did our thread tracing, how this line connects because we matched up our corners. If your thread tracing is crooked right here along this seam, then you've not matched up your seams correctly and you'll need to redo it. Grab my other piece. Same thing. Lay this out on the table, make sure the fabric is all flat. Press this seam open from the wrong side. Flip it around to the right side and give it another press. Just like that. And then we're ready for our next step.